The worst case scenario. So you've probably heard of the famous expression, plan for the best, but hope for the best, but plan for the worst. And I think that's a good strategy. I wouldn't even say hope. I would say expect the best. Like they say, don't, I think it might be in A Course in Miracles, it says, don't expect a miracle, depend on them. Basically, whatever it is that we really believe, and it's not what we believe consciously, it's what we believe subconsciously. Because consciously, like Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan until they get hit in the face. So consciously, we can tell ourselves all kinds of wonderful things, but then when life tests us, then we find out if we really believe in our subconscious, like if we really believe what we think we believe. Sometimes we tell ourselves all kinds of things that we don't really believe at a deep level. So the worst case scenario, hope for the best, or expect the best actually, and plan for the worst, is great advice. Because psychologically, like if you know what the worst is, and they say you could plan for the worst, then upgrade. Like if the worst happens, you're prepared for it, and if something happens that's bad, but it's not the worst, it's like, it's not so great, but it's better than the worst case scenario. So, it's not as bad as it could be. So it's all perspective in that way. But what happened to me in probably for about a decade, from maybe like my teenage years, mid-teenage years to maybe mid-20s. A lot of this is kind of hazy because the early part of my life, like I remember events, but I don't remember exactly how old I was at the time for everything. So, this is going to make me cry, not today, but, in the past, but it might actually make you laugh because it's kind of pathetic. But I reached a point where things were worse than my worst case scenario. And I want to explain how that's possible. So I'm an optimistic person by nature, and they say being optimistic is good because they find that people that are optimistic, are much more successful in life. Like people that are optimistic actually are much more successful than people that are realistic. Like people that they do tests and they they do different measurements and the people, different kind of tests, and they find that the people that are realistic on the tests, those people tend not to do as well. Basically, one interpretation for that is in life they tend not to do as well. People that are optimistic as opposed to realistic, like so many hard things happen in life that if you thought ahead of time of all the things that could happen, you probably wouldn't start anything. You wouldn't start a business, you wouldn't start a family, because if you knew like all the difficult things that could and would happen, you'd just be like, I'm never going to make it through this, so I'm not even going to get started. So a little bit of optimism, makes you persevere. Like today can be tomorrow. Yeah, 147 days in a row have been pathetic, but tomorrow's day 148. The sun will come out tomorrow. So although they say craziness is the definition is getting the same result, doing the same thing over and over, but expecting a different result. There's a lot of nuances to this, but they also say that you have to believe it before you can see it, which is true. People that always say I'll see it, I'll believe it when I see it. Those are the realist people. Those are the people that won't try anything because they haven't seen it yet. It's the optimistic people that are willing to work for free. So many people are slaves to money because they so many people are slaves to money because they are like, well, I see the money now, so it's a real thing. But people that have imagination can be willing to work for free because it's like, I see my business as actualized, even though it's nothing yet. And they work towards it, and then it becomes real. It doesn't start off real, it just starts off in their imagination. But that's why Einstein says, imagination is more powerful than knowledge, and it is. Because knowledge is only what exists today. You can only have knowledge for what exists today. But imagination, like everything that exists today was once imagination. Like at one time we didn't have London or Paris or washing machines or anything else. So anything that was created by humankind was at one time just imagination. Somebody had to have the idea before they created it. So everything is actually created twice. First it's created in the mind and then it's created in the world. So getting back to optimism and what happened to me between 15 and 25. So how was it possible that my life turned out to be worse than the worst case scenario? And basically, part A was that I was probably overly optimistic of how easy things would be. So my worst case scenario of how hard it would be was not that realistic. So when things got really, really, really difficult, then it was, whoa, this is worse than I even thought was the worst case scenario. So what do you do what do you do in a situation like that besides cry? One thing is they say like what doesn't kill you make you stronger. Like that tested my character. I mean, it kind of made me mad and angry and even more determined, but it made me bitter for like many, many years. I would say for probably half my life I was bitter for going through that because I just felt like life was unfair and it was so hard. Probably not even enough so's. I should add more so's to it. But what happened was that it taught me a couple of things about myself. One is that it taught me is that I was a lot stronger than I realized. Like I never really got depressed. Like I've never been suicidal in my life. I've never thought to myself, I want to kill myself or anything like that. Because I always had, no matter how hard things were, I always had hope for the future. And I always had, I guess at least a few things that I enjoyed. And so it taught me that I'm a lot stronger person than I realized. It also taught me that, things could be hard for a long, long time, but then they could eventually get better. One thing is that the reason why so few people like have great success, they talked about the 1% and the 99%, is because a lot of the 99%, this is not a put down because, everybody's a wonderful person. Everybody's working hard and doing the best they can. But a significant amount of people like don't like really even start their dreams. And a lot of people that start their dreams just give up. Like when they start to have a few failures. Like Gary Vaynerchuk says being an entrepreneur is like being punched in the face every day. And that's kind of what it feels like in a way. And, from my perspective, but it's not that you get to love pain, but you love the fact that like life can't get you down. Like Rocky says in the movie that, well, the other entrepreneur saying before Gary Vee was that being an entrepreneur is like eating broken glass. But Rocky says in the movie, life is going to hit you harder than anything else in the world. And it's not a matter of how hard you fall or how many times you fall. It's a matter of how many times you get up. I know my voice is cracking a little bit, but I'm kind of emotional about this because it's kind of like just the story of life. And they say that a true champion is just a person that got up one more time, that got knocked down. Like everybody gets knocked down in life, but it's a question of, are you going to stay down or are you going to get up? And I think what it is that, I'm proud of myself because, like I said, I never got depressed and I eventually accomplished most of my goals. There's still some goals I haven't accomplished, so I'm still working on. And, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's not beautiful to suffer, but it's beautiful to kind of come out on the other side. Like even in the Bible, and I'm not an expert on the Bible, but there's one story I know where these two guys go through smoke, fire that should have actually killed them. So, in real life, it would have killed them. But it says they came out of the fire and they didn't even smell like smoke. So it's one thing to go through trials, to go through the proverbial fire and then like be very bitter and angry and disappointed your whole life and think that nothing is worth anything. That would be like going through the fire and coming out the fire alive, but smelling like smoke. But to go through the fire and to come out not even smelling like smoke means that nobody can even tell, and you can't even tell that you went through the fire. Like there's a part of me probably a little bit that I can still remember those things, and I still like, I would say a small part of me holds on to it. In a way, it's good to hold on to it because it makes you more appreciative, but I don't feel like I'm that same person anymore. Like I don't feel like I'm a person that's kind of like afraid that I can't do things or that, doubting my self-confidence and I'm trying my best. I used to tell myself, and this is kind of pathetic, this is the part you might laugh at, but it's true. I used to tell myself, like speaking to God, that, if you didn't make me smart enough to be successful, then it's not my fault, but I'm still going to do the best I can. So I think I was always trying to cooperate with God and with life to do the best I could, but I felt ineffectual. I mean, probably by other people's standards, I was still doing well. Like, I don't want to make it seem like I was a homeless person or, just couldn't function. I mean, I held jobs, and some of the jobs weren't that great. I mean, even though I had a good education, some of them were good. But, I mean, there wasn't that many jobs, but, just working my way up. But, it's amazing just what you go through in life. And the thing, I've talked about like people that come to Earth, like all of us, we should be proud of ourselves because this is a difficult place that we come to choose to. Like, I don't know what happened in my other lives because I haven't really studied it if I did live other lives. But in this, I believe that maybe I felt this way before, but I feel that like in this life especially, I probably made, and I've forgotten what the title of this podcast is, so I don't know what to name it. But I feel like in this life that I've made more progress than I ever expected. And I think I probably made more progress, I'm guessing, than I did in most prior lives, just because I had to do so much. I mean, I wouldn't say that no one ever helped me, but there's time, I mean, because people did definitely help me, but not that much. I mean, a lot less than what I expected. Nobody really believed in my dreams, and a lot of people made it harder for me. And I just kind of persevered. I just kind of like had, at the beginning, just kind of like a glimmer or a spark. And then like as I became more successful, then kind of like it kind of emblazoned more, to a full, fire of belief. But now I'm trying to remember what the title of this podcast is. But anyway, that's it.